Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.
I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
equity,
and the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
The suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
And welcome to What's Next. Today, our focus is going to be on Niagara Falls. And with us to talk about the Levesque Institute at Niagara University. The Levesque Institute aiming to generate civic engagement, make an impact in the revitalization of Niagara Falls. With us, Associate Vice President at Niagara University, Dr. Karen Kwandrans. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And also with us, the Executive Director of the Levesque Institute, Rhonda Bivins-Talley. Hi.
Morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. I want to before we get into the work of the Levesque Institute, I'm thrilled that we have two Niagara Falls people with Niagara Falls in their blood. You guys both grew up in Niagara Falls, went to school in Niagara Falls. Let's just a general conversation. And I know the Levesque Institute is about looking forward and trying to find and make a difference in the community. But what about Niagara Falls? What should we understand about the current state of Niagara Falls right now?
Well, I think, like many other cities, Niagara Falls had some issues. And so it might not look like how we remember it. You know, we had the Winter Garden, and we had Lackey Plaza, we had the downtown mall, things like that. And, you know, we're hoping that through collective impact, we could see some of those things again. Our neighborhoods, like other neighborhoods, have some challenges. We have old housing stock. We have needs for housing improvement. And there's a lot of people working on that right now.
Right.
All right.
So we're hopeful.
Right. The other thing is we've had a number of people leave the city, right? So that's another thing, too. So you look at economic development, we don't have as many people investing in our communities either. So we're looking at ways to, like she said, revitalize the city, but also look at some of the issues and needs that we can address with the resources that we have.
And it's interesting talking about our little pre-interview conversation here. Rhonda, you may have mentioned it 10 times. Opportunities. You see it as opportunities. And again, you know, people have left Niagara Falls just like in Buffalo. We see it in Buffalo. Some neighborhoods have turned around in the last decade and have become thriving, almost difficult places to move into after being poverty-stricken and really the source of crumble to a certain extent. But so what about the opportunities that you see in Niagara Falls?
Well, there are many. So we're looking at, Karen spoke to what Niagara used to be. We're looking at what we're looking to have it become, right? That place, we have 8 million people, 9 million people visit every year. We want people to have reasons to come, but also stay. But more importantly, thinking about our residents. Thinking about our residents, not just tourism, but really looking at what are we offering our residents and what's needed in our community for our residents, right? Making sure we have resources and services and places to go, entertainment. Right. So we're looking at those places. So making sure that, you know, while we want Niagara to be a destination, we also want to make it a great place to live and have safe neighborhoods for people that are in the residents, you know, so they can enjoy entertainment year round and also have great jobs, good paying jobs. Right. Access to education, equal opportunities for education and training programs and things of that nature. And we do that by working with our community partners, which we'll talk more about. So, you know, like you said, we had great experiences growing up in the city of Niagara Falls, and we love our city, right? And we want to be able to show that love and how much we love our city by working with other people to be able to, you know, revitalize our neighborhood. So we're looking at, not just looking at, we're doing all these things in the city, but really looking at being strategic and looking at neighborhoods. Like, how do we develop neighborhoods one at a time, you know, block by block to make these changes?
And this didn't happen overnight, so it's going to take a little bit of undoing. But I think what I keep telling people is the time is right now. I've never seen the city, the county, the state. As I mentioned, the president of Niagara University, Father Marr, he is 100% committed to our city of Niagara Falls, and us really using the resources at Niagara University to do what we can through research, through impact, to assist in that. But we've got so many community-based organizations all working towards the same goal. We've got, like I said, the support from the mayor on down, the city council, really to turn this around. And I don't think I've seen a time with more funding, more enthusiasm, and more expertise coming to this area to work on this revitalization. So it's exciting. I'm excited right now.
Yeah, no doubt. That was what I was going to mention when, again, in the pre-interview conversation, that is what emits from the two of you: excitement about what's ahead here for Niagara Falls through the Levesque Institute. So let's get into that. I'm also interested in I think this is worth discussing, how you've gone about, kind of accumulating your narrative to a certain extent. I mean, there's lots of facts, there's census, there's things along those lines, but you've also done a certain amount of outreach as well to try to really gauge what's happening in Niagara Falls.
Yeah, so we get generous funding through the O'Shea Foundation, and we really want to know what our residents want, what our block clubs want, what the community needs are. So through that, we started with an intensive literature review of best practices for community and university collaboration, not coming in and telling, but collaboration. And so that led to us doing focus groups. We at the Niagara Falls Housing Authority, at the Senior Center, at Heart, Love, and Soul, one of our great community-based partners. And it was all ages and great participation. And we really listened to what they're looking for. Housing was an area of need, workforce development, an area of need, and computer skills, credit scores, things like that. So that was our charge to get going. Levesque Institute has 4 pillars, but through my role, I'm able to do all the overspill, but really looking at that community engagement and what are your top areas and what resources can we bring to that?
Right. And it's important that we're not just talking about these issues, but we're putting action to them, right? So I think that's the other piece when we talk about what's happening in communities. So many communities, that's often what happens. People say, oh, yeah, we talked about it. There was a study that was done, but we're saying, nope, let me show you what we're doing. We're actually listening to what you're saying, and this is what we're doing based on that. So when we've had these community conversations, we've had these surveys, right? And we've taken information and suggestions from community members, and then as a result, implemented different programs and services or found different partners so that they could be able to offer different services and resources to address some of the concerns of our people in the community.
What might be some of the examples of that? And it's interesting that, like you said, that is such a big, I guess, critique of efforts to try to improve things. There's a lot of conversation, but not always a lot of action.
No. And like Karen will talk more about like the housing study that came out of that, but some of the other issues.
Talk about the speakers.
Yeah, the speakers. So having other people that have been successful in trying to do the work that we've done, having those people come and speak to the residents, say, these are the things that we did, this is how we do it. And having them even come in and look around our city and say, well, what do you think? And look at the assets that we have. So we're looking at things from an asset-based, model and saying, these are the jewels. Like the city's a jewel in itself. And I think people forget that we just simply need to polish the jewels so that they can shine. So we're making sure that some of those things that we've done, maybe it may be offering a small business, like we did a multicultural business lab with M&T Bank. So we partnered with them to offer first the networking event so that people know about the resources. Right. If you're trying to start a small business, where do you go to do that, right? If you need a business plan, where do you go for that? Who offers that? What do you do if you're trying to get your MWBE certification, or some minority and women's business enterprise, certificates and things like that and contracts? Where do you go to do those things? So we held a networking event on the campus in December, and we had a great turnout. We had 60 people come out to learn. And it wasn't just about having the conversation. We had people in the rooms, right? So those community-based organizations and city resources, so that people knew, but these are the people you talk to. So we didn't just talk about where to go and what you can do. As a social worker by trade, one of my pet peeves has always been that you tell people where to go, you hand them a card, right? So then you don't follow up. So my thing is, nope, let's do this right here and now and give people more bang for the buck. You show up, I'll give you what you need.
Yeah, so it was really nice because like Rhonda said, there were people there in all stages of their business, idea to where do I go next. We had panelists, most of which were Niagara University graduates, small businesses. But when someone in the audience was asking them a question, they go, you go right there, because we had the Small Business Development Center there. We had the city there. We had M&T Bank there. I mean, it wasn't like, where do I go next? It was, that's exactly who I talked to. And the business owners themselves would say, come talk to me after this and I'll tell you what I did. So based on the success of that event in December, M&T Bank paired with Niagara University, and we did a small multicultural business lab.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was 5 weeks of training, getting people from idea to really having a solid business plan with a pitch contest at the end.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was really, really nice. We were there and helped with the 5 people who were selected, and there was prizes for 1, 2, and 3. So we hope to do that again. And these multicultural business labs, M&T has held one in Camden, New Jersey, and in Harlem and in Buffalo in the past. So we're really happy, based on the number of people who participate in the networking event, that they felt it was valuable to have one in the city of Niagara Falls as well. So just another opportunity.
Right.
And what was interesting about that is the majority of all of the businesses that completed the program and who were in the pitch contest, they were women-owned businesses. So that was very unique, right? So they're minority women-owned businesses. And to know that they now, with the pitch contest, there was $10,000 in prize money that M&T sponsored. So it was great that they were able to see their businesses flourish, and and we could also help them advertise their businesses. Right. So they got good spotlight on their businesses as well, but be able to go out into the community and also say, we participated in this program, and now they get to, we get that, I guess, community credit now, right, for doing something that we said we would do, partnering with our other partners, business partners and everything else, right? And utilizing resources so that people know this wasn't something that just we are doing at Niagara University this one time, but to understand that there are so many people working with us to be able to offer these resources and services, and that we're not just talking about them, we're actually making sure we're connecting people to those resources.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Besides, at Niagara University hosting and Rhonda being on the committee to make sure they could we had a faculty member who spent every week there, and he's committed. So some of these women who still had questions, of course he's still going to work with them. So I can't thank him enough for
And you mentioned multicultural, right?
Oh yeah.
So expand on what that means.
Well, you needed to be a minority candidate to participate in this. So very intentional on who we were looking to give resources to. And so we're hoping, that people see that there's supports out there for them, and that if they have even the slightest idea of entrepreneurship, small businesses make up the majority of businesses in the United States, that there is support for them in Niagara County and in city of Niagara Falls for their businesses. And, my hope is, we revitalize the Main Street area of the city of Niagara Falls, and we have plenty of small businesses who are ready to go to move in.
Right. Because that's a backbone of usually with cities, right? Those small businesses.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And being able to support them and making sure that they're thriving.
It's interesting also how you talk about best practices. It's interesting, these speakers that you've been able to bring in. Let's talk a little bit about what you're hearing coming from those ideas about best practices. Because like you said, this is, a university has a great freedom to do certain things that a lot of other institutions don't. At the same time, there are not necessarily limitations, but the mission of a university, they can vary depending on the way the wind blows, for that matter. But now you're learning about the best ways to go about doing this. What are you hearing?
Well, the most important thing is to not come into a community and say what the best practice is according to you. It's making sure that you're coming and working with a community and listening to those voices and collectively working with them to say, okay, are these the things you're looking for? What I'm hearing you say is you want and you need these things. And then looking back at our resources and being able to say, well, what can we offer along these lines? So it's important to know how you approach a community. Right? You just don't go in and say, I have the best practice. I know what you need.
Right.
We have to make sure that we first are listening, because at the end of the day, yes, there are needs, right? There are all sorts of needs. But depending on how the community views things, because they're looking and say, no, we have that. And we're coming in, if you're looking at things from an asset-based eye, you're looking at what already exists, what's already working, and how can we support what's working, and be realistic and prioritize the things that are needed. Right. So we're not just coming in and saying, well, we're going to do this. Right. You just don't come into a community that way. You make sure you're listening to the voice of the people, because they're the experts about what is needed in the communities, because they're in the community every day. Right. And a number of people have already been doing some of that work. There's that grassroots work that's been going on that's never stopped.
Right.
Right. So really, how are we tapping into what's already out there, already happening, and how do we add to that? So how do we support and supplement some of those things, utilizing the resources that we have?
Yeah, sometimes we want people at the table, rightly so. Like, you need to be at the table. You need to be telling us about your community and what your needs are and how we could assist with what you already have doing. Sometimes we're invited to the table, so that's nice as well. We have this initiative going on. It'd be really nice if Niagara University could assist us with this or support us with this. And so that's just as nice to be invited to the table as it is to know that we need people at the table to make informed decisions and to make the changes that everybody's looking for.
And that's the goal too, to be invited, because in that way you're doing what's needed and what's right. So it's a matter of being invited into a space as well. So because then there's that trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've earned that trust, and that takes time. Right. What's good for us is that we've been doing this kind of work a long time, and we're residents of the city. So we have those relationships that we came to Niagara with, and we're just expanding on those relationships by some of the utilizing resources and partners that already were at the university. But really being able to say, what are we all bringing to the table? Right. One of the things that Karen often says, which I'm going to steal it right now.
Okay.
There's this really big pie. There's this really big pie, and we all can have a slice of the pie. Right. And really and have a feast in the end. Right. So it's not really about you having more than I have and putting more on a plate and someone else doesn't have anything on the plate. But really, how do we all, how do we feast together? Right. And how do we create a better meal than we would have individually?
And also, I always say it's a big pie. We don't all have to take the same piece.
Right.
So there are people who do things better than Niagara University. There's people who need Niagara University.
Right.
So we'll just take a different piece, but we all have the collective pie, right?
Right.
I mentioned it's interesting also to hear talk about working with grassroots organizations already doing the work and trying to gauge where they're at, how effective they are. But maybe it's always interesting, I think, to hear about some of those particular efforts, and again, Niagara Falls, we've talked to a lot of organizations here in Buffalo that are trying to do a lot of that work. But let's maybe just kind of touch upon what's going on in Niagara Falls, what you're seeing, and some of the successes that you're seeing, and some of the maybe issues that obviously we'll get into a little bit more that need to be addressed as we move forward.
Well, one of the things also for really is a big issue, and that's everywhere, I think, across the United States and other places, is food insecurity. That's one of the issues. Housing, some of those things that are happening. So it's we've had success with community gardens. So this was something before we came to Niagara. The Levesque Institute had a grant where they went into the community and they were doing things with community gardens, right? So we're looking at the idea of food sustainability by helping people learn to start their own gardens, right?
Okay.
As we put them in different pockets of the community, at community-based organizations, some schools, even at maybe some of the residential spaces like the assisted living, Niagara Arts and Community Center. They have a community garden, and they use their produce to actually run their restaurant, right? So looking at how do we create more sustainability by partnering with the residents and other community-based organizations to find these spaces where we can input these community gardens so that we have an abundance of produce in the area. So when you look at the distance and for when they're grocery stores, we tend to have more convenience stores in some neighborhoods more so than others. So looking at even, one of the efforts from Field and Fork, one of the partners is looking at those convenience stores. What are they offering, right? How do we change what's being offered in a community, a convenience store, so that there are healthier options for people? So those are some of the things we're talking about, looking at addressing certain issues. So whether it's putting in a community garden, whether it's looking at, what's available in a community, in a convenience store, so that's healthy for people to go to. Those are the types of grassroots things that we're doing. Looking at making sure that people have access to healthcare. Right. So partnering with the community health clinic, and we do the health fairs and being a part of what's already happened in the community, but adding to that. Right. So bringing resources, whether it's students or whether we're looking at grants to be able to maybe offer things where we're educating some of the the health professionals, looking at literacy issues and working with our families to make sure that they have access to health care. Right. Things like that. So when we're talking about these grassroots things, we're looking at, mental health. One of our partners just down the road is the Community Health Clinic of Niagara, which you have it here in Buffalo, and it's in Lockport and all the other places. Well, that's one of our partners. So we work with them, and we look at even behavioral health, right? Bell Self has worked with us to offer mental health first aid training for our students as well as faculty and staff. I went through the training myself so that we can actually be first responders when we're helping people to identify and help them get help for any type of mental health challenges they may have. We've partnered with one of your guests that you've had, a former guest, BF&C. We did a community health, mental health awareness weekend. I co-chaired one of the events that they had a couple of years ago, and they continue to offer these services, right? But making sure that we have more people getting the word out about these resources and where they are and how to access them. So working with all of our partners, there are all of these different grassroots efforts that are going on, block clubs, right? Mm-hmm. Supporting our block clubs and finding grant funds for them so that they can help make our neighborhoods safer. Working with the city to be able to, offer supports to our block clubs and things of that nature. We have community missions that's doing a lot of things. So we are continuing this work. And like I said, there are those grassroots efforts, but really being able to tap into them and be able to really just better support what's already out there and happening.
I don't think there isn't a community-based organization that we don't work with or we don't have student workers at. We had, again, through the OSHI, the opportunity to fund paid internships. And I wrote that very specifically for community-based organizations in the city of Niagara Falls. So like many businesses who are finding it difficult to hire, staff, our community-based organizations are dealing with the same issues. So we have, I don't have the number in front of me, but it has to be over 40 students now who have had paid internships in our community-based organizations. And due to that, 4 have been offered jobs there. So that's what we were hoping, that students had a really good experience and that it worked out really well for our community-based organizations, and that there was this awareness of a need, and that in the end they'd be offered jobs. I had one community-based organization, which I won't mention, who said, how do we keep our student? How do we keep our student? I go, well, you hire them. That's how you keep your student. You hire them. So it wasn't just following someone around or doing filing. They took over positions that they're either someone retired or they were unfilled or, something they've always wanted, but, didn't have the funds to have. So it was a great learning experience for our students. And not one community-based organization said this didn't work out.
Right.
I mean, it just beautiful. Just
and
beautiful.
That element of the Levesque Institute is not a small element. The student involvement, to get the students involved in the real issues of the community.
Absolutely. So Rhonda could talk about the impact of impact.
Right, the impact of impact. So that's what I'm talking about, those innovative mission projects, right? Accelerating community transformation. That's our impact, right? So that's an action word, right? The action verb, right? We're looking at, what are we doing to really, truly make a difference? And we have over 1,000 partners now that are in our Impact Connects database is what we use. So we have partners go in and list what their needs are and what they're looking for. So whether they're looking for volunteers, if they have opportunities for internships, and unemployment, they can go into our database and list those things and our students can see them. But we also do things where instead of having the students just kind of look on this database and, you do everything electronically, we have events every semester where we bring community-based organizations on the campus, right? And I like to call it pick a project, right? Because they list what their needs are and you have an opportunity to talk to some of those, sometimes the actual administrators of those organizations that come out and learn more about what the needs are in the community and opportunities. We always talk about opportunities because there are so many opportunities for our students, for the community-based organizations, and then the impact that is made through these collaborations is what's important and what we focus on.
We're going to take a short time out here on What's Next today. We're talking about Niagara Falls with the folks from the Levesque Institute at Niagara University. We'll get into more of it when we come back. This is What's Next on WBFO.
Hey, educators! You've been asking for it, and it's here. Reading Rainbow Stories is ready to help your students stay on track. Each story is paired with activities to help students strengthen cross-curricular skills, such as math and business in Lemonade for Sale.
Let's keep track of our sales.
Science and health in Germs Make Me Sick.
Usually, you feel better after a day or two. But if you don't, you should see a doctor.
And history in Following the Drinking Gourd.
One of the worst things about slavery is that families were separated. Fathers, mothers, and children were oftentimes sold to different people.
Check out the new Reading Rainbow Stories collection on PBS Learning Media today to help your students stay on track.
Looking for something to do? Buffalo Toronto Public Media is always hosting fun and insightful events. We have concerts, big ones and small ones, educational events, and events that help raise money so we can continue to serve our community. Visit WNED.org/events to see what we're up to.
Take a levity break with Group Chat, hosted by Tiffany Bentley. Listen Fridays at 10 a.m. on WBFO for lively banter on everything in pop culture, music, movies, trends, social media, and more.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And welcome back to What's Next. With us, we are talking about the Levesque Institute at Niagara University aims to generate civic engagement and make an impact in the revitalization of Niagara Falls. With us from the Levesque Institute is their Executive Director, Rhonda Bivins-Talley, and also with us, Associate Vice President at Niagara University, Dr. Kwandrans. Karen, give me your full titles because I couldn't get it all down.
It's the Associate Vice President for Strategic and External Relations.
Okay, very good.
So Levesque Institute is one of the many areas that report, and I get to do the fun work too.
Yeah, it's interesting though that Niagara, every institution, every university wants to have that community impact. But for Niagara University to focus on this, it is an interesting part of their, like you said, it's a strategic initiative.
It certainly is. It's not only in our strategic plan, but it is part of our Vincentian mission. So Father Mar just is committed to the work we're doing in the city of Niagara Falls. He's a great supporter. We have faculty who do community-based projects, project learning. We have students who are committed. And, we have a real partnership. Father and the city, the mayor of the city of Niagara Falls, Robert Restaino, they co-chair a committee that has the superintendent and ESD and the hospital system, head of Heart, Love, and Soul, just so SUNY Niagara's president, and just a real nice convening group to really talk about issues and what everybody's doing, and not only just discuss what everyone's doing, but make sure we're supporting what they're doing as well. So there's a few different ways that Father himself is really involved, and besides, showing up and giving that leadership and support.
Let's get into the pillars of the Levesque Institute. Early childhood, community outreach, health and wellness, revitalization. 4 big topics for any urban community, like we mentioned, let alone whether it's Niagara Falls or Buffalo. So let's maybe just to expand on those just a little bit, if we could go into some of those and how you're going about approaching these different pillars.
Well, under each of those pillars, as you said, you mentioned early childhood. Well, we've looked and realized it's not just early childhood, but really looking at that P through 12 education. So that pillar has really changed into the P through 12 education. Community outreach was where we're looking at our partnerships and the programs that we offer in the community through those. A lot of those with school districts, particularly one of our biggest partners being Niagara Falls City School District. But also we have a workforce piece where we're looking at the Child Development Associate courses that we offer to offer micro-credentials for those that are working in early childhood. So there are a number of things that we offer through our different pillars, and we do this work through the pillars focused on the P through 12 education, health and wellness, and that community outreach that I mentioned, as well as the revitalization. Like under those 4 pillars is kind of where we look at the focus of and how we do this work, right? By being strategically focused on these areas and prioritizing our work through those different pillars.
Yeah, not P12 has expanded, but we still do work with the early childhood, the kiddos under the kindergarten age, which is always fun. I put that as other duties as required.
As assigned.
Chasing toddlers. So, and we're really, we're focused through a Tower grant. We're in year 3 of a Tower grant, of those trauma-informed practices that really we need to know, practitioners need to know, and parents need to know how to better support or be aware of things that are impacting that early learning. So we have programs in the libraries across Niagara County. We have training programs for our parents. We have training programs for providers. So besides that professional certification, CDA it's called, we run all kinds of workshops through Western New York, just to make sure that parents are interacting with their infants, that they understand the positive power of play and discovery, and that those benchmarks and milestones are being met. And when they're not met, what resources there are for them. We want to make sure every child is prepared for kindergarten.
Right.
And often those things. So we like looking at and building that foundation and building upon that so that we continuously are weaving that into everything that we do, make sure that, so we look at, literacy, not just for children, but looking at adults as well, looking at, building those different skill sets that they may need to prepare them for the future workforce.
Yep. And when we're talking about other partnerships with the school district, we have an early college high school program. So students start with us in 9th grade, doing all kinds of prep work to get prepared and just knowledgeable of the pathway that it takes to enter post-secondary education. Starting as early as summer after 10th grade, they could start taking summer courses in our summer camp. 11th and 12th grade, they're taking college level courses and are visiting our campus. And it's really a nice pathway. We would hope that they'd all come to Niagara University, but we want them to be prepared for whatever post-secondary option they have. We have literacy programs with our middle school kids. And why don't you talk about what we did this summer with Inclusive U?
Okay. So the other thing that's important, we call these pipeline programs, because the idea is we're starting with the little kids, 3 and 4 year olds in the preschools. And then we talked about early college and, preparing them for graduation and going. But in between that, we have other programs, as Karen mentioned, the literacy programs, our linking literacy to movement, working with our athletes and working with our College of Education. But the programs that we have are pipelines into another program. So in middle school, so let's say elementary school, they're in our linking literacy to education. And then, they go into our middle schools, which are critical literacy programs. And that program then leads into our early college program. Not that students have to be in each of those in order to get in these programs, but these are the on-ramps to those. And we're growing our programs consistently and looking at meeting the needs in the school district. So this summer, what we did was we had an opportunity we listened to teachers, right? Our special education program teachers. And what they were saying is they wanted to create opportunities for their students as well. Because if we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, when we look at that, we're not talking about race, right? We're looking at inclusion across the board. So when we look at our students who are in special education programs, we wanted to make sure that they weren't being left out. right? So it's not a matter of whether or not a school has funds, but really what can we do as a university to offer a greater experience for all students at every level. So this year, our operations manager, her background is in disability services. And we put our heads together, and there was an opportunity based on what teachers were saying. Could we help? So they reached out to the Levesque, and they just wanted a really small experience for students that were coming. They had students that were participating in the Special Olympics, but then there were students who weren't. So they were just trying to find something for those few students who weren't participating. Well,
we can't do anything small.
Can't do anything. So I was like, this is, again, opportunity, right? There's an opportunity now to do something that wasn't being done. And that was to create a program for these students who might not have had college on their radar, right? Or their parents, right? So we partner with one of my good friends that I've been working with for years and years before even coming to Niagara, Dr. Gallo. We looked at creating a program through the school district to really, again, support their needs and creating these experiences for students. And the focus was really self-advocacy and preparing these students for transition past high school into adulthood and making sure that they had a continuum of support beyond high school, because they get everything that they need in high school, but what happens when they graduate, right? So making sure that these students, again, aren't being left behind or left out. We then partner with some of our community-based organizations like Person-Centered Services, Independent Living of Western New York, and even our own departments through disability services to really be able to create a program to bring those students on campus and offer them a summer camp. So we have our students in the early college program that were there during July, and they're in a 3-week camp taking college courses. Well, I thought, how great. Why not have another summer camp running at the same time and bring our inclusive students? And I called it Inclusive NU. Well, we called it Inclusive NU. And the idea was to give them the same experiences that we were giving the early college program. And even though it's a 4-year program, what could we do in a week that will really open their eyes and really give their parents information and supports and understand more about services. So whether it was through the community-based organizations or through state resources, really, how do we bring people together and just, again, offer what was needed right then and there to everyone? So that's what we did. We brought the students on campus, and they participated, and they too audited classes that our students were already taking from our early college program. So our professors were wonderful in allowing them to do that. So as much as I thought maybe we just audited a class, they were participating in the class.
Okay.
And we had professors that allowed them to do that. So our students who were learning, they were doing American Sign Language. Well, those students then were able to teach the students in our inclusive program what they were doing. And lo and behold, to their surprise, a number of those students knew sign language. So we had these wonderful conversations that were going on. Dr. Gallo created an experience for them. And we offered this through a Beeman Foundation. So all of these wonderful things that we think of, we have to pay funding for. Through the United Way, through Beeman funding, they supported this experience that we wanted to create for our students. And we were able to, again, bring them into a science lab. So it wasn't just a matter of, here, come on campus and see what's on campus. It was really having them immersed in activities, right? And being able to participate and have those hands-on experiences that kind of open their eyes. But also the teachers, right? Giving them the resources they need, to better understand resources that were out there and connect their parents to those resources. We brought the parents on campus during our Wednesdays, of course, when there's a big barbecue day. We brought the parents on campus to have lunch with them, but more importantly, connect them to these resources, not just tell them about them and give them the pamphlets, but have those community-based organizations right on site to be able to provide the information. And some of our parents right then and there signed on to get those services for their students and are now better prepared for that transition for their child.
And I think that's one of the things that always, strikes me is it doesn't matter if we're doing a program for birth to 4-year-olds or for high school students or for adults looking to start a business, or now with our inclusive program. Every single event, someone didn't know about something, and are actually talking to someone and getting a referral or getting the services they need.
We're talking this morning with Dr. Karen Kwandrans, Associate Vice President at Niagara University. Rhonda Bivins-Talley is the Executive Director of the Levesque Institute. And we're talking about the work of the Levesque Institute, how it is looking to impact the community of Niagara Falls. Housing study, your housing study, Dr. Kwandrans, was something I know you're particularly proud of and find it quite insightful. Tell us more.
Yeah. So, housing came up as an area of concern for our residents when we're talking to them or in the focus group. So that was something I was interested in, but in the same time working with the city of Niagara Falls and having Matt Chavez from our Niagara Orleans Regional Land Improvement Corporation, Land Bank, come speak to our students who are in a civic engagement project or talking to Gina Beam, who's from our Niagara Area Habitat for Humanity. Everybody was talking about housing. So again, convening and saying, we all get funding from different sources to do things. How can we have a plan or, more information and really make a collective impact? So that was the beginning of our meetings. And at the same time, I read a great national LISC, which is the Local Initiatives Support Corporations, and said, I think we have a Buffalo LISC office. So I called Tyra Johnson Hucks, and, we started meeting, and she started coming to our meetings. And through funding through LISC, we decided we need data, for everything we do, for grants we want to pursue to have a better understanding of what our housing and community looks like. We need a study. So, like I said, LISC gave us that generous support. We were able to do not only a housing study, but GIS mapping. So we've got a huge data set. It's on for 3,325 parcels. It's the mid-city of Niagara Falls. We have 76 GIS data sets, and our students and one of our professors, Dr. Tong, jumped right in doing some of the field study, doing some of the GIS work. And what's really great about it, this study won't be the data that we collected. It won't be a one-time or only as good as the day we collected it. Our GIS students in Dr. Tong's class will keep that information updated, and it'll be a real live product. What's great about it is this isn't Niagara University's study. It's not the city's study. It's not Habitat's study. It's everybody's. So it will be available on the Levesque Institute website. We're having a formal announcement on September 13th. The web mapping tool will be on the Levesque Institute site as well as the housing study and recommendations. So we started as a core group. And it was the Kevin Forma from the city of Niagara Falls and Matt Chavez from the Land Bank and Dr. Tong, Gina Beam from the Niagara Area Habitat for Humanity, and Tyra Johnson Hucks from LISC. But more people had housing. So, into the fold came our Jewish Family Services and Buffalo Niagara Partnership, or Preservation, and M&T Bank, and Community Services for Everyone, and it just keeps growing and growing. And that's the point. We all are on the same team. We all want, we all can have that pie, but people are already using the data for grants, and that's what we hope. So if a faculty member needs to do research, they could pull up that study. If you're a developer and really want to know we have a data dictionary that's unbelievable of information in there. If you're a small business owner, want to start a daycare and want to know how many kids under the age of 5 are in an area, that information's there too. If you're a resident, just want to know more about my community, it's there too. So again, we're very, very, very happy with the end product and the amount of data. One organization said this saves us hundreds of hours of trying to find things for grants. So happy to have that information. And I'm just so thrilled that it's finally going to be accessible for everybody to see on September 13th.
Right. And the impact end that goes on to that, when you look at the fact that our students are doing this service, it's connected to their coursework. So we have our students involved in this research, which is really great. So they're working with another professor, Dr. Tiedemann, and they're doing research for these studies and everything. So it's great that our students are involved in all of this great work. So it's not just looking at the administrators being involved in community organizations, but really what are our students doing to lend to this, to get this experience, to better prepare them for the fields that they're interested in going into.
Yeah, so Dr. Tiedemann's work is focusing on workforce development programs, primarily in the Niagara County, and how that benefits someone economically, how that increases their job prospects and if they were unable to complete what some of those barriers were. Again, out of our OSHI focus groups and survey, people were interested in workforce development in college skills or college prep skills or workforce skills. And we want to make sure that we're offering the kinds of programs that are accessible and are needed, are in demand, and really understand the barriers to completion and to attaining a job.
We have to take a time out here. We'll come back and finish up our conversation. We're talking about Niagara Falls with the Levesque Institute at Niagara University. This is What's Next on WBFO.
Need a break from the daily grind? Kick back and join the fun with Group Chat. Our revolving panel of friends knows a lot about film and music, theater and video games, food, sports, social media, and what's trending online and right in your own living room. From debating the best movies to weekend recommendations, we've got your entertainment covered. Listen and laugh along with us Fridays at 10 a.m. on WBFO.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together, we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
And yes, this is What's Next, and we're finishing up our conversation about the Levesque Institute at Niagara University. With us, Vice President Dr. Karen Kwandrans, Associate Vice President, and also the Executive Director of the Levesque Institute, Rhonda Bivins-Talley. We've touched on a lot of different things. There's a lot going on. This is a wide-ranging effort, but NU at 822. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned this because this is a key effort from Niagara and from the Levesque Institute to, again, that extra step of ingraining yourself in the community of Niagara Falls.
Yeah, so this was something that started before Rhonda and I came to Niagara University. We've been here about 3 years now. The NU at 822 project was part of the Niagara Falls Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the downtown DRIs through economic development. So this was about 2019 that they originally got some funding for this. Again, the university feels very strongly about having a presence right in the community, and the work we're doing is all community based, so it'll save us a few miles going from campus into the community. So we are anticipating hearing from one of our funders soon and getting that project up and going. That will have classroom space. It'll have lecture halls. We'll have workforce development. It's an academic innovation hub. So our faculty, our staff can use that. And it's a beautiful church from 1856. So it's got quite a bit of history of abolitionists. It's got quite a architecturally, it's gorgeous. So it'll be quite a anchor. Right. In the north end of the city of Niagara Falls. Prior to us closing for construction, we had quite a few speaking events there, and it was just really nice to see the community come out. Not only people driving there, but people walking there as well. We're close to the public library, we're close to schools, we're close to early childhood that the city of Niagara Falls is opening up. So it's going to be a great space for our students and faculty to do these community projects because they'll be so close to early childhood and the school district and other things right in the community. So we feel very strongly that this is where we belong, and the commitment of the Academic Innovation Hub is just another way that we show our commitment to the community.
Right. We're not looking at just having another pillar that we're adding to what we're doing. We're actually looking at being a pillar in the community. Right. So that's a difference too. We're looking at that, and how do we not only just establish our presence, but also how does having our presence there positively impact the community, right? So even looking at, when we're looking at the economic impact, even when we look at the work that our students do, like I collect all of that data through our Impact Connect system. So all the work that's being done on and off campus, we're looking at, well, what does that equate to? So we look at it and say, you know what, last year we looked, our annual report shows that our economic impact value was at over $2.9 million for the work that our students were doing, because it's skills-based work, and the federal government actually attaches a particular dollar amount to that. So it's not numbers we're making up. These are actually federally mandated numbers that we're using to be able to calculate, what is the value of what we're doing and giving back into the community, in addition to the value that's added by what happens with those community-based organizations, the changes we see in the community, but also for our students, right? Being able to have an impact on them and have them better prepared. They'll be more skilled, better skilled workers by having these experiences in the community and working directly hands-on, not just talking about maybe writing a paper about something they had an experience for a couple of hours, but really seeing projects from the beginning into fruition to be able to really have a true experience and really be impacted positively, professionally and personally.
We're looking at really multifaceted ways to engage beyond like traditional engagement. And I think through our programs and our faculty involvement, our student involvement, and, just the ways that we're working with the community, that we're really doing something fresh, doing some new things that normally aren't thought about.
And Rhonda mentioned it before, like how, funding is such a key part of this, but it does sound like you've got some enthusiastic partners in this.
We sure do, and I hope I don't leave anybody out. We have M&T Bank, we have Oshai Foundation, Tower Foundation, United Way of Niagara through their Beeman Foundation. LISC has been great. For the building projects, we have ESD, we have EDA, and we have HUD funding for that project, as well as some foundations as well.
What are you hearing from them? I'm curious about, obviously they have their own metrics of what their own objectives when it comes to, granting money and funding and such. What are you hearing from them about their enthusiasm for the project, about what they're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, I'll say the state especially. We've been working, the city of Niagara Falls, the mayor, and has been convening meetings with the state and Niagara University and the county, his council, and everybody's at the table. So again, that's where my enthusiasm's coming from, is that we're just seeing a renewed interest because I think of the collaboration, the leadership of the mayor, the leadership of Father Marr, and just everybody working together. It's not siloed, so they see that we're all in this, right. And it takes everybody. So there's a renewed interest, I think, in, the fact that we have real plans. We have data-backed plans. We have visions. We have a relationship that's not siloed. When, our last meeting, they saw everybody at the table. And we had all the answers.
Sounds like a big table.
There was overflow, and but when people who hold money and people who really have some decision making power see that every single one of us are invested in this city of Niagara Falls and the revitalization of the city of Niagara Falls, and that there isn't a question that we can't answer because we've done our research and we meet. And it's not that we kind of know each other. The relationships are really there. Yeah. And then you add the community-based organizations and the grassroots and the residents themselves. Again, we could all talk about what's wrong with the city, but, we're just really jazzed at all the positive. All the positive talk that's going on in the city of Niagara Falls, and everyone brings their own strengths, and again, collectively, I think that's going to be the answer. We're just happy to be part of it, actually.
And finally, Rhonda, we're down to our last minute or so here, but I suppose, what do they call it? The elevator pitch. Everyone's got to have one, right? So when someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm the executive director at the Levesque Institute. What do you tell them?
I tell them that we're the community arm, one of the community arms of the university. And what we do is we're conveners. So what we do is we bring all the people together, as Karen was saying, we bring all the people together, we look at resources, then we create opportunities, right? How do we create opportunities based on what the needs are, the critical needs, particularly in the community? And then we prioritize our efforts in really addressing those issues. So I would say that we are the ones who really bring people together and give a positive spin on what's possible. Right. So we're not looking at the negative. We're looking at approaching things with an asset base by bringing all of our resources together, looking at everyone being a stakeholder, and then looking at, what are the projects that come out of this? How are students involved? How are businesses involved? And then what difference are we making? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're really looking at. What difference are we truly making in our communities, and making sure that, we're addressing these critical needs based on what people say the needs are, not what we think they are.
Right. Right. And so what about finally the possibilities? I mean, it sounds like you're open to anything and everything, but
that's part of our problem. We're like, hey, we think anything can be done if you do it collectively, right?
Yeah, Rhonda will tell you, we'll try anything once.
We'll try it once. And if it fails, it's still positive. It's a win because we learned from it. So long as we learn from it, that's what we think is important, right? So, sharing resources, and we're trying to change cultures.
Right.
That's the other thing that we're doing. That takes time, right? Trying to change mindsets, right? And letting people know that we're coming to be collaborative. So that's what I say. It's important that we're looking at how to be better collaborators and everyone coming in and having a seat at the table.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoy hearing about Niagara Falls. Love to hear a progress update down the road. With us, Rhonda Bivins-Talley, Executive Director at the Levesque Institute at Niagara University, Dr. Karen Kwandrans, Associate Vice President at Niagara. This has been What's Next. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been What's Next on WBFO.
Support for WBFO and What's Next comes from our members and from Health Foundation for Western and Central New York, where racial and socioeconomic health equity are prioritized. Learn more about building healthier neighborhoods at hfwcny.org.